Hey, my friend, I'm really glad you're here. Tonight, I want to share three terrifying stories with you. Real ones, not urban legends, not made up fiction. These things actually happened, and the first one still haunts me to this day. It's called The Neighbor and the Evil Symbols. So grab a blanket, dim the lights, and listen closely. Not all haunted houses are full of ghosts. Some are haunted by people, some by decisions, and others by something much older. Hi, I'm glad you're here. Tonight I need to tell you a story I've carried for years. A story I wish weren't real, but I remember it all. Every sound, every scent, every shadow that shouldn't have moved, but did. This isn't a spooky campfire tale, it happened. And even now, I don't think it's truly over. We moved in during the fall of 2016. I remember the scent in the air that morning. Wet soil, chimney smoke, and something faintly sour drifting in from the fence line at the south. I was 9 at the time, but it's still clear in my mind like a photo etched in memory. My grandparents had decided to downsize, so we moved into their old house, a quiet brick home built in the early 90s, tucked at the edge of a fading southern town. 5 acres, ringed by whispering pine trees and bordered to the south by a slow, muddy creek. But it was the neighboring house that caught my eye that first day. Something about it felt off. It leaned ever so slightly, like it had been trying to collapse for years, but just wouldn't give in. Built around the 1920s, it looked like someone kept adding rooms with no plan, just wood, nails, and stubbornness. The roof sagged, the porch tilted. The peeling paint clung to the structure like flaking skin. Even on dry days, the place gave off a heavy, damp odor. The yard was chaos, overgrown with trash and weeds. Plastic bags hung from tree branches like eerie flags. A broken fountain lay buried in the tall grass. Decapitated garden gnomes stared from overrun corners. And in the center of it all sat a rusted lawnmower, half swallowed by the ground, like it had tried to run and failed. Every time we passed by, I caught myself holding my breath. No one waved, no smiles from the porch. The curtains didn't move, but I always had the sense of being watched. The kids who lived there looked half wild, clothes too small, stained, hair matted and eyes wide, like animals caught in headlights. And the 2 old women barely ever spoke, just stared when we passed, stared like they were waiting. That house wasn't haunted like in movies. It felt alive, and it watched. Her name was Teresa. The first time I met her, she stood beneath the old oak tree near the creek that separated our yards. She was unusually tall, with thick, curly black hair that hung in greasy ropes. Her dress was faded and clung to her like it hadn't been cleaned in weeks. The yellowed glasses she wore made her eyes seem far too big. "You're strong," she said suddenly. Her voice was sugary, but thick, like medicine that coats your throat too long. "You've got the sight. You're lucky." I blinked. "What do you mean?" She smiled, too wide. "You ever heard of the third eye, baby?" I shook my head. "Oh, everyone's got one," she whispered, stepping in so close I could smell her breath. "Burnt herbs and something foul. Not your real eyes, the one that sees what's true." Before I could ask, she turned away and started walking toward her house. "Come on," she said. "I'll show you." I followed. Inside was worse than I could have imagined. The smell hit instantly, rotting food, mildew, and something animal. Moldy dishes, trash bags oozing in corners, a dirty diaper wedged into a couch cushion. I gagged, but she took my hand and led me upstairs. That's when everything changed. Her room was spotless, pink wallpaper, white carpet, porcelain dolls lined up perfectly. The air smelled of rosewater and dust. It was as if the filth downstairs wasn't allowed up. She sat me on a velvet chair, opened her vanity, and revealed a silver tray. On it, a black candle, a crystal ball, and a thick leather book. My stomach churned. The book had a pentagram carved into its cover. Then I noticed more. Symbols etched into the mirror's frame, drawn in chalk beneath the rug, scratched into the wooden floor. I jumped up. "I need to go. My mom's calling." She just smiled and lit the candle. I didn't wait. I bolted. 3 years passed, but I never forgot what I saw in that room. I stayed away, crossed the street just to avoid walking near the house. Still, I could feel its eyes. Once in a while, I'd see a curtain twitch or hear faint, wet footsteps behind me at night. But when I turned, no one. Then came the fall of 2019. Agnes, one of the old women, died from a heart attack, right in that house, in front of the kids. They said she collapsed in the kitchen, hit her head on the stove, and was gone before help arrived. The children just watched. No crying, no screaming, just watched her be taken away. The funeral took place in an old, crumbling Baptist church on the edge of town. Mold-lined walls, torn pew cushions, a place that felt abandoned by God. The family sat cold, emotionless, hollow. But one woman in the second pew cried loudly, sobbing so hard her voice echoed. No one acknowledged her. It was like she didn't belong, like they couldn't see her. Then came Liam, the teenage boy in the house, always angry, always twitching. He'd sneak out barefoot into the woods, mumbling to himself. One day, he vanished. Rumors spread fast. Some said he attacked a girl in the barn, left her bleeding. Others said he tried to exorcise a demon inside her. He was taken away in handcuffs, ranting about voices, committed to a psychiatric ward out of state. That night, my parents sat us down. No jokes, no smiles. "You're never to go near that house again," my dad said. I nodded, but I already knew. That place had always been wrong, and now it wasn't hiding anymore. After Liam and the rest left, the house sat vacant, but not quiet. On certain nights, if the wind hit right, I'd hear it, off-key lullabies drifting from within. And sometimes that upstairs window, Teresa's room, would be open, curtains fluttering. Then in 2020, Violet died, alone. Neighbors said her body wasn't found for a week. The house turned still, cold, like it held its breath. The property went up for auction. That's when Mrs. S bought it, my old English teacher. Kind, warm, always wrapped in scarves and scented with cinnamon tea. She and her husband wanted to renovate. "Give it a second chance," she told my mom. "All it needs is love." They tore most of it down, gutted the inside, rebuilt the porch, installed new floors, but one room remained. The original room from 1920, Teresa's room. "We kept the history," she said with pride. She invited us over for a small gathering, showing off the modern kitchen, the bright floors, the sunlight pouring through windows. It was beautiful, until I climbed the stairs. The moment I reached the top, something shifted. The air thickened, colder. Goosebumps rose on my arms. It was like the room remembered. I walked down the hallway to the old room. New peach wallpaper, a rug covering the floor. But I knew what was under it. Even through my shoes, I felt it. The pentagram, still burned into the wood, still alive. My head throbbed, my stomach twisted. I mumbled something about feeling sick and asked to leave. Mrs. S looked disappointed. I was supposed to stay for dinner, but I never went back. Not even once. I thought it was over. Teresa, Liam, all of it. But last year, 4 years after I'd last stepped near that place, I heard her name again. It started with whispers. Someone spotted a strange woman at the farmer's market, tall, wild hair, long skirt, thick glasses, laughing to herself, handing out leaflets. She called herself the Seer of Truth. I didn't want to believe it. Then came the flyers, on windshields, bulletin boards, grocery stores. Join the circle, awaken the eyes, step beyond the Veno address. Just a number and a red symbol, a familiar one, the same star from her book. They said she'd moved deep into the woods, living off-grid in trailers with a small group of followers. Some called it a cult. I knew better. Whatever started in that house, she brought it with her. Weeks later, Mrs. S asked if I could dog sit. I hesitated, but money was tight. It was just a week. The first 4 nights, nothing. Fed the dogs, locked the doors, tried not to think about what lay beneath the upstairs floor. But on night 5, things changed. Henry the pug growled at the stairs. Muffin the shepherd whimpered hid. Then the sound, a thump. From upstairs, another, louder, closer. No one else was home. I didn't wait. I grabbed my bag, leashed the dogs, and fled. I locked the door, but I still felt cold. Something followed me home. And even now, in 2025, I dream about her. Teresa, standing at my bed, silent, smiling. Liam behind her, blank face, black eyes. They never speak, they just watch. And every time I pass by that rebuilt house, no matter how new the paint, how bright the windows, I feel it. The walls remember. Whatever she awakened there, it's not over. Some say the past dies when a house is torn down. But I've learned, walls remember. And what Teresa brought into that place didn't die with her. It just found somewhere new. So if you ever find yourself near the woods and someone offers to show you the truth, turn around and don't look back. Not all monsters lurk in the woods. Some walk beside you, laugh with you, sit next to you during basketball drills. That's how mine found me. My name is Keegan, and once I had a best friend. His name was Clayton. Back in ninth grade, life was pretty normal. I lived with my parents in Michigan, went to a decent high school, and had a small, close-knit group of friends. After school, we'd always end up at the local community center, a rundown place with creaky gym equipment, a half-broken vending machine, and a basketball court we called home. That's where I met him, Clayton. A grade below me, shy, a little socially awkward, but we clicked quickly. He was obsessed with the NBA, especially the Pistons, and we talked players and stats like we were hosting a podcast. One time, my dad got us tickets to see the Pistons live. He invited Clayton to come. I'll never forget the look on his face walking into that stadium. It was like watching a kid see snow for the first time. It felt good to be that person for him. He laughed at my jokes, always texted first, wanted to hang out every day. At the time, I thought he was just lonely, but sometimes darkness doesn't crash into your life. It creeps in until one day you turn around and it's already standing behind you. That's what Clayton was. At first, the clinginess seemed harmless. He texted constantly, morning, night, even during school hours, asking where I was, who I was with, what I was doing. If I didn't reply fast enough, my phone would blow up with an angry emoji. I brushed it off, thought he was just bored. But near the end of ninth grade, things shifted. I was planning for summer, driver's ed, a part-time job, maybe visiting family. I was excited for more freedom. Clayton, though, he didn't take it well. The more space I tried to make, the more he tightened his grip. He'd guilt-trip me for missing hangouts, go silent if I made plans with others. One time, I said I couldn't hang because I had to clean the garage, and later that night, I saw he'd removed me from Snapchat. I messaged him, "What's going on?" His response, "You're turning into everyone else." I didn't know who everyone else was, but I felt something shift in that moment. Uncomfortable, cornered. From that point on, I began lying, telling him I had plans when I didn't, just to get space. But every time he'd reappear, like nothing happened. And every time I let him back in, I felt like he was closing the walls tighter, like he was trapping me in some unspoken game I never agreed to play. This wasn't about friendship anymore. It was about control. And soon, it got darker. It happened one night, late spring. One of those heavy, humid Michigan nights where it feels like rain is coming but never does. My parents were out of town for dinner, and I had the place to myself. Just me, a frozen pizza, and some dumb reality show humming in the background. Then I heard it. 3 knocks. Sharp, even, intentional. I froze. No one was supposed to be here. I hadn't told anyone I was home. Step by step, I walked to the front door, every muscle on edge. I checked the peephole. No one. Still, I cracked the door slightly, nothing but the dim hallway. I locked it, double locked it, tried to convince myself it was a prank, a neighbor, anything ordinary. But something told me to look out my bedroom window, and that's when I saw him, standing just beyond the glow of the broken street lamp at the edge of our lawn, motionless, tilted head, watching. It was Clayton. I flung the window open. "What are you doing here?" I shouted. He didn't flinch, just stared, then said in a flat, mechanical voice, "We need to talk." I told him to leave, said I'd call the cops. That's when he stepped forward, and I saw it, the knife, silver, long, glinting in the dark, held low but not hidden. He wanted me to see it. Panic exploded in my chest. I slammed the window shut, grabbed my phone and called 911, hands shaking so badly I could barely hit the numbers. Clayton never tried to get in. He just stood there, watching. By the time the police arrived, sirens blaring, he was gone, vanished. But I knew what I saw, and he brought that knife for a reason. The officers took my statement, asked questions, jotted things down. But in the end, all they said was, "We'll look into it." That was it. He didn't break in, didn't touch me, didn't step onto the porch, so there was nothing they could do. But I couldn't let it go. Not after what Nick told me. Right before all this, one of my old friends, Nick, had messaged out of nowhere. He knew Clayton. He also knew Clayton's ex-girlfriend, and what he told me chilled my blood. Clayton had pulled a knife on her too, threatened her during an argument, and later he assaulted her, sexually. I don't know what happened after that, if she pressed charges, if anyone believed her, but people knew, and no one warned me. I blocked Clayton from everything. But before I could hit the button on Instagram, the messages came pouring in. "What did I do? Why'd you block me? I thought we were friends. Say something." I didn't. I just typed, I need space. I'll talk to you soon. It was a lie. I just didn't want to set him off. Then came the knock. Then came the knife. And since that night, everything has changed. I don't sleep the same. I don't trust the same. I keep a bat by my bed and flinch when my phone buzzes too much. Clayton disappeared after that. No more texts. No more sightings. It was like he vanished into the dark Michigan woods. But that didn't bring peace, because now I'm always waiting for the knock, the shadow, the day I see his name in the news and someone else didn't survive. The worst part isn't what he did, it's how close I let him get. So here's what I've learned. Red flags don't scream, they whisper. They hide behind jokes, behind apologies, behind just being protected. And when you finally realize the truth, it might already be too late. So if your gut tells you something's off, listen. Cut them off. Tell someone. You're not being paranoid. You're protecting your life. And that instinct might be the only thing that saves it. Sometimes, the most terrifying thing in a theater isn't what's on the screen. It's what's sitting just a row behind you. It was a late night screening. Just Emily and me, hoping for a calm, distraction-free evening. The room was dim and nearly empty. We picked the ideal seats, center row, great view. Everything seemed perfectly normal as the movie began. But not even halfway through the first act, I felt something. That unmistakable sensation, the one you get when someone's eyes are boring into you. I looked over my shoulder. There was a man seated directly behind us, probably in his late 40s, pale-skinned, freshly shaven, wearing a gray hoodie. He didn't seem unusual at first, until I realized his eyes weren't on the movie. They were fixed on us. He leaned forward slightly, almost like he was captivated by what was happening on screen. But his gaze never moved from me. He didn't blink, didn't glance away, just stared. I whispered to Emily, "That guy's staring at me." Without even turning, she gave a subtle nod and murmured, "I know." We both looked forward again, pretending we hadn't noticed, but something about his presence didn't feel harmless. It wasn't a curious glance. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It felt deliberate, predatory. Every few minutes I glanced back. Nothing changed. He stayed completely still, never laughed, never reacted to the movie. His attention never shifted from us, his eyes cold, intense, unwavering. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just some creepy guy. This was something far worse. We tried focusing on the film, hoping he'd eventually stop. But the longer it went on, the heavier it felt. Like we weren't watching a thriller, we were living one. Roughly 20 minutes later, I suddenly leaned to the side, casually glancing back like I was stretching. He was still watching. Same posture, same wide-eyed, blank stare. But it wasn't daydreaming. It wasn't spaced out. It felt hollow, like there was no one behind those eyes at all. Then I felt something. A faint, warm breath on the back of my neck. I turned fast, and there he was. He leaned even closer now, his face just inches away from the back of my seat, close enough that I could see the tiny tremble in his lip, the pulse ticking near his temple. I stared at him and said, voice shaking but firm, "Sir, can you please stop doing that?" He didn't respond. He simply leaned back again, quietly, slowly, like someone had hit pause on him. I looked at Emily. We're changing seats. We quickly gathered our stuff and moved 2 rows down to the far side. Bad view. Terrible angle, but at least we had some distance. Even then, I couldn't stop turning around, and every single time I saw him, still watching, unblinking. About halfway through the film, we heard footsteps. Heavy, deliberate. He was walking down the aisle. Emily squeezed my hand tightly. We didn't move, didn't breathe. The steps stopped just behind us. We sat frozen. Eventually, he turned around and walked back up the steps, fading into the darkness at the back of the theater. But those seconds, those terrifying, silent moments, we didn't know what would happen next. They stretched forever, and I knew we couldn't stay a second longer. I leaned over. "We have to go, now." Emily nodded without hesitation. We stood, quietly collected our things, and moved down the aisle toward the exit. I glanced over my shoulder one more time. He was standing in the center aisle, not walking, not chasing, just staring, not at the movie, not at anyone else, at us. We pushed through the doors into the hallway. The brightness outside the theater felt jarring, like a floodlight after being underwater. For the first time all night, I felt a little air in my lungs. We made our way to the ticket counter and flagged down an employee. Young guy, maybe in his 20s, looking puzzled. "There's a man in theater 6, I told him. He's been staring at us the whole movie, really creepy." His face turned pale. "You mean again?" I stopped. "Wait, again?" He hesitated, then sighed. "That guy's been showing up almost every night, always for the late shows. Never buys snacks, doesn't talk, just sits and stares. You're not the first to say something." I stared at him. "So why is he still allowed inside?" The employee looked uncomfortable. "Management says unless he actually touches someone or causes a scene, there's nothing we're supposed to do." Emily's eyes were welling up. "Can someone walk us to our car?" They agreed. A janitor carrying a walkie-talkie walked with us through the dim parking lot. Every shadow felt like it could be hiding him. That night, we got home safely, or at least we thought we did. But the whole time, I couldn't shake the thought. Did he see our car? Memorize the plate? Quietly follow us? For weeks afterward, I lived with quiet dread. Every late-night screening, every unfamiliar car behind me, every creak in the house after dark, I kept thinking, what if we hadn't changed seats? What if we had stayed? The terrifying thing wasn't just that he watched us. It was that no one could or would do anything to stop him. Because in the eyes of the law, he hadn't technically done anything. That night, I barely slept. Every noise, every whisper of wind or shadow through the blinds felt like him outside the window. I kept seeing his face, inches away, still, unmoving. That wasn't normal. It wasn't social awkwardness. It was predatory. The next morning, Emily texted, still shaken up. I didn't blame her. We messaged back and forth for a few days, but something had shifted. There was this shared fear between us, and neither of us wanted to reopen it. Eventually, we stopped talking. We never saw each other again. I never returned to that theater, not even to that part of town. Eventually, I told a friend who worked in law enforcement what happened. When I mentioned the staff's excuse that unless he physically harmed someone, they couldn't act, his response was immediate. "That's not true," he said. "Theaters are private property. If someone makes people feel unsafe, they absolutely have the right to remove them." So why didn't they? Why did they let him keep coming back? Was it fear? Company policy? Just indifference? Weeks passed, but the unease lingered. I still caught myself scanning for that hoodie, that face, that stare. What haunted me most was how easy it had been for him to blend in, how he used silence, shadows, and the rules of politeness as cover. No one screamed, no one panicked, not even us, because technically he hadn't done anything. That's exactly how predators operate. They wait, they study, they test your reactions. I never found out what he really wanted, but something tells me if we hadn't left when we did, he would have made sure we never did. Even now, years later, I can still remember it. The closeness of his breath, the expression on his face, the way he didn't flinch when I confronted him. Some moments stay with you. Some fears dig in and don't let go. I never saw him again, but I never stopped looking. And the worst part, it wasn't what he did that night. It was how everyone allowed him to keep doing it. The staff knew, management knew. They let him come back, over and over, lurking in the dark, sitting close enough to terrify without crossing any visible line. That's the space predators live in, that gray area. They don't come out of nowhere. They slide into the cracks no one wants to see. And if we hadn't trusted our fear that night, if we had hesitated, I truly don't know what would have happened. Because people like him, they don't always look dangerous. They look average, quiet, normal, until they're not. So here's what I need to say. Trust your gut. If something feels wrong, it probably is. You don't owe anyone your comfort. You don't need a good reason to get up and leave. That instinct you feel, it's your first line of defense, and it might just save your life. Thank you for listening to my story. If it reminded you of a time you felt something wasn't right, please remember, you're not overreacting. You're protecting yourself, and that might be the difference between surviving or not. There are still so many strange, unsettling things out there, and I'll be back to tell more of them. Stay alert, stay safe, and always, always trust the signs. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. You never know which story could be the one that keeps you out of the dark.